Look, JustProfessor here. You think you see everything that's happening around you. You think if something obvious happens right in front of you, you'd definitely notice it. But you're wrong. Your attention is way more limited than you realize, and you're missing huge, obvious things constantly without even knowing you missed them. There's a famous psychology experiment where people watch a video of students passing basketballs. They're told to count how many times the ball gets passed. At the end, they're asked if they noticed anything unusual. About half the people say no, nothing unusual happened. But right in the middle of the video, someone in a gorilla suit walks through the scene, stops, beats their chest, and walks off. Half the people watching never saw the gorilla at all. This is the illusion of attention. You think you're paying attention to everything, but you're actually only seeing a tiny slice of reality. The illusion of attention is when you overestimate how much you notice about your surroundings. You think your attention is like a spotlight that lights up everything in your field of vision. But actually, your attention is more like a narrow beam that only lights up one small thing at a time. Everything else exists in a kind of fog where you're barely processing it. And because you don't notice what you're not noticing, you walk around thinking you're seeing everything when you're actually missing most of what's happening. This creates all kinds of problems. You miss important information because you're focused on something else. You fail to notice changes in your environment. You don't see opportunities or dangers that are right in front of you. And worst of all, you're confident you didn't miss anything because missing things happens outside your awareness. You can't remember what you didn't notice, so you assume you noticed everything. This isn't about poor observation skills or not trying hard enough. This is a fundamental limit of how human attention works. Your brain can only consciously process a small amount of the information your eyes are taking in. The rest gets filtered out. And the filtering happens automatically, below your awareness, so you never realize how much you're missing. Let me give you examples of how this plays out. Driving is probably the most dangerous place this happens. You're driving down a familiar road, and you're thinking about work, or listening to music, or having a conversation. You get to your destination, and you barely remember the drive. Your attention was elsewhere, so you were essentially driving blind. You might have run stop signs or cut people off without noticing. Other drivers had to avoid you. But from your perspective, the drive was fine because you didn't notice the problems you caused. This is called highway hypnosis, or automaticity. But it's really the illusion of attention. You think you were paying attention to driving because you got where you were going safely. But actually, you were on autopilot, and you missed most of what happened. If someone asked you what you saw during the drive, you couldn't tell them because you weren't really looking. Phone use makes this dramatically worse. When you're texting while walking, you think you're still aware of your surroundings. But studies show people walk right into obstacles, fail to notice people trying to talk to them, and miss their turns because their attention is completely captured by the phone. They're not seeing the world in front of them at all. But ask them afterward, and they'll insist they were paying attention to both the phone and their environment. They weren't. The illusion of attention makes them think they were. Conversations suffer from this constantly. Someone is talking to you and you're thinking about something else. You hear them talking, but you're not processing what they're saying. Then they stop and look at you expecting a response, and you have no idea what they just said. Your attention was elsewhere, but you thought you were listening because you heard sounds. You weren't actually attending to the meaning. Relationships have huge problems because of attention illusions. Your partner tries to tell you something important while you're focused on your phone or the TV. You say, "I'm listening," but you're not really. Your attention is split, which means it's mostly on the other thing, not on them. They feel ignored. You think you were paying attention because you heard some words. Neither of you realizes attention doesn't work the way you think it does. Witnesses to crimes or accidents are notoriously unreliable because of attention limits. Something dramatic happens, and witnesses are asked what they saw. They give confident testimony about details. But research shows witnesses miss huge, obvious things and confidently report things that never happened. Their attention was focused on one aspect of the event, so they missed everything else. But the illusion of attention makes them think they saw the whole thing clearly. Magic tricks exploit this ruthlessly. Magicians know exactly where your attention will be, so they do the secret move somewhere else. You're staring right at them, but you miss the trick because your attention was directed to the wrong place. After the trick, you're convinced you watched their hands the whole time. You didn't. Your attention was exactly where they wanted it, which meant it wasn't on the method. Change blindness is a related phenomenon that demonstrates attention limits. Researchers show people pictures and change something obvious between views, like a person's shirt color or a building disappearing. Most people don't notice the change unless they were specifically looking at that part of the image. Their attention was elsewhere, so the change didn't register. But people are shocked when they find out they missed something so obvious. This happens in real life constantly. Someone gets a haircut and their friends don't notice for days. Furniture gets rearranged and people walk through the room multiple times before noticing. A coworker wears glasses for the first time and nobody comments. These aren't subtle changes. They're obvious. But if your attention isn't directed at them, you won't see them even though you're looking right at them. Work environments are full of attention illusion problems. You're in a meeting and you think you're following along, but you're actually thinking about your next task. You miss important information. Or you're reading a document while also monitoring emails, and you think you're doing both. You're not. Your attention is switching between them rapidly, which means you're doing both poorly and missing things in each. So how do you work with the reality of limited attention instead of pretending you notice everything? First, accept that you miss things constantly. This isn't a personal failing. It's how human attention works. You can't attend to everything, so you will miss most of what happens around you. Accepting this makes you more humble about what you think you saw or heard. Second, single task when things matter. If a conversation is important, put your phone away and give it your full attention. If you're driving in dangerous conditions, turn off the music and stop conversations. If you're reading something critical, close other tabs. You can't actually multitask. You can only switch attention rapidly between tasks, which means doing all of them worse. Third, be strategic about where you put your attention. Since you can only attend to a small amount at once, choose what matters. Consciously direct your attention to what's important rather than letting it get captured by whatever is most interesting or stimulating in the moment. Fourth, create systems that don't rely on attention. If you need to remember to do something, set an alarm or write it down. Don't trust that you'll notice when the time comes. If something important might be easy to miss, create a checklist. Pilots use checklists not because they're forgetful, but because attention is unreliable. Fifth, ask people to repeat important information. If someone tells you something crucial while you're distracted, ask them to tell you again when you can give full attention. Don't pretend you got it when your attention was elsewhere. Sixth, build in attention breaks. Your attention fades over time on a single task. If you're doing something for hours, your attention quality drops dramatically even though it feels like you're still focused. Take breaks to reset your attention capacity. The illusion of attention is making you overconfident about what you perceive. You think you notice everything in your environment. You think you're paying attention when you're actually not. You think you saw clearly when you missed obvious things. This isn't about trying harder or being more observant. It's about understanding that human attention has strict limits. You can only attend to a small amount of information at once. Everything else is essentially invisible to you even though your eyes see it. And because you don't notice what you're not noticing, you walk around thinking you have a complete picture when you're actually seeing a tiny fraction of reality. This matters for safety, relationships, work, and understanding events. The things you miss might be important. The conversations where you weren't really listening might have contained crucial information. The changes you didn't notice might signal problems, but you'll never know what you missed because the missing happens outside your awareness. Understanding attention limits helps you compensate. Focus on one thing at a time when it matters. Accept that you miss things and build systems that don't rely on perfect attention. Be humble about what you think you saw or heard. Check your assumptions by asking questions or reviewing information. Stop pretending you notice everything. You don't. Nobody does. Your attention is a narrow beam in a vast world, and most of that world exists outside the beam at any given moment. Work with that reality instead of denying it. Watch the next video to learn about another perception bias distorting your reality.